Do you have any advice for college students or aspiring professionals on how to foster a culture of continuous learning and growth within their team, within themselves even?
Absolutely. I think that there's a pausing for a second and talking about the field that, I'm in, being technology oriented. Having a growth mindset and constantly learning is a critical part of being successful in technology over any length of time, because it changes so fast and moves so much. And you may get to know one area really well, and then, in 3 or 4 years, that's a if even 3 or 4 years, like that's a deprecated skill set, et cetera. And you've got to move on to the next one. And I think that, so there's this like theory that runs through everything on it's really hard to be an expert at everything. But it's not unusual to be surrounded by a variety of people who have expertise that you don't. And so to feel comfortable with, one, admitting what you do and don't know, and then two, leveraging the team members that know more than you to learn from them, etc., is I think a critical thing to do.
One of the things I think that was also interesting that you talked about before, which I thought would be really interesting for students, is that when you approach people today as a leader, you really focus on thinking about them from the perspective of they want to be successful, as opposed to, it's called, like, in technical terms, it's the fundamental attribution bias. And again, I think that's a really difficult skill that a lot of students don't necessarily come out the gate with, right? Where it's really easily to say, oh, when something doesn't go right for me, it's a third party's issue. But whenever someone doesn't get it done, it's their issue. And I was really fascinated by how you really focus on thinking about, first, how can I help the other person? Because fundamentally, almost every single person wants to succeed.
Ever anything broke down in one component, what we often found was that it was the other component's faults, and if you were in one part of the stack and the problem was in the other part of the stack, the team responsible, for the part of the stack was trying really hard to resolve the issue, but everybody else was just frustrated with them. And like, then when I got to the other side, and, whether that other side, meaning the first time I had to, also help drive a hardware deployment, you realize all the different things that go into it that you don't have a lot of context into when you're sitting on the software side, or you realize all of the different pressures that these individuals have on their time, and how many things they're trying to juggle at once. And there's an empathy that's gained from having experiences that are broader than your own.
Touching back on your integration of this interconnected seamless buying experience, actually, I know there's a lot of parts that come about it, with delivering orders directly to the job site in a matter of days, or even things that might be invisible to the customers, that you know about and that you have to implement in providing this technology. And I was wondering, how do you exactly take on this new challenge and understand and prioritize what really needs to be done first and distribute that to the teams?
When we started that journey, fundamentally, we had to think about, one, what was the customer experience that we were trying to light up. And so the customer experience was grounded in, I'm going to have inventory in a physical store that I could sell digitally. And so we had to kind of take that and break it apart. So what does that mean? I need a way to visibly show a customer online what the inventory would look like. But fundamental in the heart of that, the more we talked about it, like, what we had to have was an accurate picture of inventory behind the scenes to sell against. And so then we had to take the concept of, all right, we have to know how many hammers are on the shelf in store 121 at all times. What all is involved with that? Well, and you just keep pulling the thread, and it's, We've got to know what comes in the back door. We've got to know what goes out the cash register. I probably need to know how many of these hammers I sell a day, so I don't overpromise. I can't I can't control the fact that there's a customer in the store who takes a hammer off the shelf but hasn't checked out yet. So how do I account for that? So when you show up, like you don't have a bad experience because the hammer's gone now.
Can you maybe describe the culture within your division, and then also within that self, what are maybe some of the initiatives that you see on the horizon that kind of these younger technologists will get to tackle if they were to be on your team?
So Home Depot is what we say a values-based company. And so what do we mean by that? It can sound kind of trite or overplayed, but if you go and look at our website, there's a couple of things that you'll find in the about the company. And one is our values wheel, and one is our inverted pyramid. And both of these things, I think, encapsulate kind of what the org feels like, what the organization feels like. That inverted pyramid means that the CEO is at the bottom and our associates and our customers are at the top. So they've got the biggest chunk up the top, and everybody else is below supporting them. And so there is this very, true culture that lives out on service. Like, I am here as a leader to serve my team. I am below them. I am helping lift them up. It is not the other way around.